Remember this thing? Of course you do. It's back in my workshop. Remember I was doing chain and sprockets on it out on the road? Well, did the chain, did the rear sprocket, but it beat me, I'm afraid, which doesn't happen very often. Couldn't get the front sprocket nut off. Absolutely fucking on there. I tried everything in my arsenal. Impact gun, locking up the rear wheel, big long brake bar on a socket, heat from a blowtorch or a map gas torch, you name it, I tried it. So front sprocket wasn't that badly worn, so I left it on there, and he's actually ridden it over to me, and I'm going to attempt to, I've got a better arsenal of things in the workshop, and it's higher up on the ramp and it's just easier to get at, and we'll see if we can get it off. It might come to, as a massive last resort, I might have to actually cut the nut and then split it with a big chisel. Not something I like doing really. Obviously there's a gearbox shaft there and you've got to be super careful, but it may come to that, but I'll check in with you later and let you know how I get on. I've got a bigger compressor in the workshop. It might be that the impact gun will work here in the workshop. Anyway, we'll see. And a little teaser which was in the title. I think you might like this. Look what I've got in my workshop. So we've got a bit of a project, Hayabusa powered. I'm not saying any more, but you're going to see that on my channel. You're going to see a lot of this on my channel. Anyway, take it easy guys, I might check in later when I get this nut off. Otherwise, have a good one. See you soon. Let the operation commence. Right, it's about to get a bit rude. This nut is fucking properly on there. Nothing touches it. The easiest way is going to be to, let me show you the other nut and the new nut that I've got, and I'll explain my plan to you. Right, new nut and tab washer. So my plan is, this nut, you can see it's shaped to go, it's basically shaped to go round the bit of gearbox shaft that extends out through the sprocket, but the gearbox shaft isn't sitting up on this inner flangey bit here. So the issue I've got is either it's seized on the thread, or more likely this flat surface here where it pushes up against the sprocket, it's seized there. So what I'm going to do, because obviously you don't want to risk going anywhere near the thread, so my intention is to, with a grinder, is to cut down on these flats. So chop that bit off, chop that bit off, chop that bit off, or maybe just we'll start with chopping one off, and that way, look at the profile of the nut, I'll remove most of this flat area that's pushing up against the side of the sprocket, and then I can use the square drive bit with a socket on there, and hopefully we can just shock it off. That way there's no danger of going anywhere near the thread, which we absolutely don't want to do. Hopefully that'll work. I just say at this point, I fucking hate using an angle grinder for anything. It's like an absolute last resort. People that use angle grinders to grind off chain links before they push the pins out are idiots, in my opinion. There's no need. Get the proper tool, and you can just push a link out as easy as pie. You don't need to be fucking grinding and making a dusty, horrible mess everywhere. Yeah, so it goes without saying. Go back to the bike. You've got to be, like, plan ahead with your protection. I don't want dust, grinding dust, or I don't want to risk if the grinder decides to go off on the piss. Try and avoid, obviously I can't really avoid the chain, but you know, protect everything else. There's like 5 thicknesses of cloth there around the frame. Just, you know, it's no good not protecting it, thinking you're going to be alright, and then it all goes to shit and you wish you had protected it. So, you know, just pay attention. Grinders are horrible things. And as I say, massive last resort. Right, I'm going to cut this now. I haven't got a tripod, so you're not going to see me cutting it. Unless somebody else can maybe hold it for me. And we'll see how we go. Fingers crossed. So it just occurred to me, watching myself back then on that last take, that I've got to be careful because there's a section of the shaft, oh, fucking hell, can't point, there's a section of the shaft that sticks out past the sprocket. It's got the spline tab washer on it, but it's also got, you know, it's got the spline as well. What am I trying to say? That the spline bit of the shaft is of larger diameter than the threaded piece. Does that make sense? We could actually offer up. Hang on, let's take this out of its bag. Right, so that is going to be, this tab washer is normally fairly loose on the spline, so let's call it that. So that's going to be the diameter of the shaft. Go to the nut. Yeah, so this cutaway in here is for the piece of spline shaft that extends out past the sprocket. So that means I've got to be super careful how much I cut off this. So if we measure, try and do this in one take, it's probably not going to fucking happen, but we'll see. Sorry, I've got a bit of a potty mouth on me at the moment, haven't I? I need to watch my language. There might be children watching. Bloody hell, sorry guys, I've gotten all tied up in that glove. Right, okay, so what we need to do is measure that. If I cut, God, it's hard to try and film it and do it at the same time. So if I cut that much off, flip that over on the flat, where's it going to take me to? Yeah, I got to be really careful not to interfere with the spline on that shaft. Right, we'll peck away at it, nice and gentle. See where we end up. Yeah, baby. So I cut those just two sides off, just enough to leave the. Whoa, fucking hell, I can't stop swearing, Jim. I cut the two sides off. Obviously, it's this flat surface here that's pressing on the sprocket. You can see how almost it's sort of cold welded itself, like a galling on it, onto the washer. So that was pretty successful. I'm glad I paid extra attention and did some measuring, because whether we can see without a light, I've just make the exposure higher. So full disclosure, just kissed the end of one of those splines just on the one side, but it's the part of the spline that has the tab washer on it, so it's insignificant in terms of sort of performance and safety and stuff. But if I hadn't measured and I just weighed it in with a grinder, could have been a different story altogether. So if there's any takeaway, wow, that's overexposed. So if there's any takeaway at all from this video, it's don't just wade in and start hacking away at stuff. Consider everything you do, you know, protect everything. Think about what you're doing, take some measurements, think about it, go and have a brew, think about it some more, then actually make your cut. Otherwise, yeah, it could go wrong quite quickly and get very expensive. Anyway, that is the end of this. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one.